now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines and simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Lena. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Hey, great minds think alike.
You know about it.
Yeah. It's popping up on all of my daily news updates.
Oh, hell yeah. It's certainly one of those significant days where we can appreciate our planet.
Or how we've fallen short in respecting planet or something like that, taking up more into responsibilities. I'm sure you just heard me introduce it, but apparently the cicadas are coming in droves. If you don't think the climate change affects this, then you've been under a rock. Some things to consider.
It's going to be loud.
Their swan songs are rather loud, aren't they? Okay, I digress. Let's jump into some of the major headlines this morning. We're going to start off with this first keyword of the day.
Tough reshuffle.
So President Yoon has been considering candidates for the new Prime Minister and Chief of Staff for 12 days. There were rumors of maybe Chief of Staff getting picked over the weekend to no avail. The top office is still deliberating. It seems a priority is appointing the Chief of Staff first, though.
Yeah, that's likely because the appointment doesn't require parliamentary approval. Of course, the majority that the opposition holds in Parliament is certainly going to be a hurdle in terms of trying to appoint a new Prime Minister. There's certainly going to be some backlash. So it's not that the Chief of Staff appointment will be not having any backlash, but certainly it doesn't require that approval. So it'll be a smoother process for the government. Now, it is a position that is actually critical for managing especially internal affairs within the presidential office. So they'll want to get that out of the way first. However, the selection has been delayed, as you mentioned, although it was initially expected by last Friday and it wasn't announced yet. This delay may be influenced by a phone call between President Yoon and the Democratic Party chief Lee Jae-myung, where Yoon proposed a meeting between them. If realized, it will be their first formal talks since Yoon took office. Now, the specifics of the meeting, including the date and agenda, are still being arranged, but livelihood issues are expected to top the agenda, as well as other kind of contentious and delicate issues as well. And the plan is to potentially announce the Chief of Staff after this meeting takes place to maintain courtesy towards the opposition leader. Among the candidates rumored for the Chief of Staff are Chung Jin-seok, a seasoned lawmaker from the People Power Party, and Lee Jung-hyun, a former lawmaker who has experience in various government roles and is known for a less pro-Yoon stance. Additionally, lawmaker Chang Jae-won and former Land Minister Won Hee-ryong are also being mentioned as well, along with a couple of other names. Now, furthermore, discussions are also underway regarding the appointment of a new Secretary for Political Affairs, something that's been mentioned in the segment before. The role will mainly focus on gauging public sentiment, something that the government was kind of accused of being out of touch with, especially after the crushing defeat by the ruling party in the general elections. So, yeah, the presidential office is being a bit careful in terms of considering who to appoint as the Prime Minister and Chief of Staff, especially when it comes to the Prime Minister as well, because certainly Parliament plays a role in that. So we'll have to see after the talks, if they do happen between President Yoon and Lee Jae-myung, to see if Lee Jae-myung will have will weigh in terms of his opinions on who the personnel appointments should be.
All right. That and a host of other issues the two would need to discuss if that is a meet face-to-face. Like, for example, the 13 trillion won cash handout that Lee Jae-myung would be pushing for, the Marine's death, medical standoff. That's just the short list.
Just a short list, yes. Many others.
I mean, this is why we have keyword news, right? All right. Let's move on to our second keyword of the day.
Yasukuni Shrine.
So the government has expressed deep regret and disappointment over the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida sending a ritual offering to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine. I mean, this is where they honor Japan's war dead, including Class A war criminals. It's a touchy subject. What's the latest?
Yeah, certainly one of the many touchy subjects between Korea and Japan. We spoke about the Dokdo tensions last week, and this is another one of those contentious issues, sticky issues between the two countries, especially amid the kind of improved ties under the Yoon administration between the two countries. But it goes to show that there are still, of course, underlying issues that are yet to be resolved. Korea's foreign ministry urged Japanese leaders to face history squarely and demonstrate humble reflection and sincere repentance. Now, it added that this would be an important foundation for improved ties between the two countries. And the statement came after Kishida sent the so-called Masakaki offering under his title as Prime Minister earlier on Sunday to mark the beginning of the shrine's Spring Festival. Now, Kishida has not visited the shrine in person since taking office. He's instead sent ritual offerings for biannual events, festivals in the spring and fall. However, Japan's economic revitalization minister, Yoshitaka Shindo, paid a visit to the shrine yesterday morning. The shrine, of course, is a very controversial one in that it honors Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals. It is a symbol that is seen by especially Korea and China as of Japan's militaristic past. Visits by Japanese leaders are often protested by Korea and China. This is something that's been of a years-long occurrence between the two countries, and it's yet to be resolved. Now, the Prime Minister, not just Fumio Kishida, but his predecessors as well, they've kind of refrained from visiting in person, but even that kind of ritual offering is something that sparks anger from the likes of Seoul and Beijing.
So tensions rebrew. This is despite, of course, Korea and Japan, as you've said, with improved ties and with a common agenda there. But nonetheless, the fundamental gaps in how we view history, it still absolutely remains. Let's move on to our third keyword of the day.
Med tensions continue.
All right, so on the medical standoff, doctors have rejected participating in the Presidential Medical Reform Special Committee and are again calling on the government to scrap the plan to raise medical school admissions altogether. So start from square one. What's the latest?
That's right. And they also actually dismissed the government's suggestion for medical schools to independently decide on expanding their enrollment quotas as well. Despite this, the government remains firm that while medical schools can set their own enrollment numbers for the 2025 academic year, it will not entertain cancelling the expansion plans outright. So both sides are pretty adamant and placing their feet firm in terms of their respective stances. The committee is tasked with discussing important aspects of the government's medical reforms. It's set to begin work on this Thursday, actually. It will consist of 6 government officials from various ministries and 20 private sector members, including 10 nominated by healthcare provider groups, 5 by consumer groups, and 5 experts from different fields. Yet, the Korea Medical Association has decided not to participate, arguing that the committee's structure and purpose are not clearly defined, and they basically see no point in participating if it doesn't truly reflect their views. They basically say that it's not really going to do much in terms of bridging the gap between the two of them. Similarly, residents have not shown any interest in joining the committee as well. They are the ones, especially on strike en masse. They are instead preparing legal action, rather, against government orders to return to work. The KMA has also expressed its disagreement with the government's decision to allow these medical schools to independently determine their class sizes for next year. It says the measure is insufficient and has once again called for a complete reconsideration of the expansion. But the Health Minister, Cho Kyu-hong, clarified that the government is not considering at all scrapping the expansion as demanded by the healthcare community. It's also standing firm on its plan to increase admissions by 2,000. It's kind of fixing that number in place. So, yeah, I mean, there were maybe some speculations that maybe there might be some middle ground found between the two sides, especially after the ruling party's defeat in the general elections, but it doesn't seem to be that way. So both sides have said they're open to talks, but with conditions that their views are heard. But their views are pretty much cemented right now, and they're not really seemingly willing to budge on their respective stances. So it's going to be a long, drawn-out process going forward still.
Considering that both sides are absolutely adamant about their demands and no wiggle room to meet in the middle. We'll wait and see in the process who bears the cost, right? It's probably the patients that are in much need.
Right.
All right, on to the currency volatility crisis, our fourth keyword of the day.
Forex woes.
So since the start of the year, the Korean won has fallen by 7.3% against the US dollar, surpassing the rate seen during the global financial crisis back in 2008. So what's the latest?
Yeah, so certainly some startling numbers in terms of the $1 exchange rate, especially after Iran's attack on Israel. Issues related to the exchange rate are now becoming a key focus in macroeconomic policies, which have traditionally concentrated on managing inflation, growth, and interest rates. This decline in the won's value is primarily due to the global strength of the US dollar, although the won has fallen considerably more than other currencies. Now, this suggests that the decline reflects vulnerabilities in Korea's external economy, according to analysts. Now, on the 19th, the won closed at 1,382 won against the dollar. That's up over 7% from the end of last year's rate of 1,288. This is the largest increase for the same period since March 1990. The dollar index, which measures the value of the US dollar against six major currencies, increased by just under 5%. This is largely because the US economy continues to thrive, leading to expectations that the Fed will delay cutting interest rates, which typically supports a currency's value. Now, additionally, geopolitical risks from the Russia-Ukraine war, as well as conflicts between Israel and Palestine, as well as the Israel-Iran tensions, have increased demand for the dollar as a safe asset. So, of course, basic economics, if something is more in demand, then the higher its value. Now, among the 26 major trading nations that the Fed uses to calculate the dollar index, the won's depreciation ranks as the seventh highest. Now, given the current tensions in the Middle East, the Korean government is on high alert and has escalated its response, trying a host of verbal interventions as well. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Chang-yong, however, during his recent visit to the United States, projected the volatility of the $1 exchange rate would ease, but only if the Middle East tension did not escalate further. So they're keeping a watchful eye and trying to mitigate the situation, but there's only so much the Korean government and the Bank of Korea can do, especially because these are, of course, external factors that need to be considered. So, yeah, for the time being, there's kind of speculations, or analysts are projecting that this could be the depreciation of the Korean won could last for some time yet, but we'll have to see how the situation in the Middle East and the subsequent consequences in terms of oil prices play in terms of the won's value.
And with that, we move on to our final keyword of the day.
Ukraine support.
So after much delay, could this be greenlit? The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill to provide over $60 billion worth of additional military aid to Ukraine. There's been so much delay. Ukraine has been pushing for it further. Tell us the details of the plan.
Yeah, so as usual, there was a lot of political kind of back and forth and a bit of locking of horns, and when in terms of trying to get this package out. This aid package is actually part of a broader $95 billion foreign security bill package that was passed the same day. Now, these bills also included support for Israel and Taiwan and legislation related to forcing the sale of TikTok and strengthening sanctions against Iran. Out of these bills, the aid for Ukraine was the largest in amount. The support to Ukraine is $60.8 billion, part of which is required to be repaid. Now, according to this bill, after supplying weapons from the current U.S. military stocks to Ukraine, $23 billion of the total amount will be used to refill these stocks. The primary focus of the U.S. support will be to provide anti-aircraft defense systems to block Russian missiles and drones, and large amounts of artillery shells as well. A partisan divide had stalled the additional aid to Ukraine. Now, the military aid was depleted late last year, and until now, no budget bill had actually been passed to extend it. Since the Republican Party gained the majority in the House in January last year, no major Ukraine aid legislation had actually been passed in both the Senate and the House. The bill will now go to the Senate, and Joe Biden must sign it into law. He's been very welcoming of it, so he's likely going to sign it, and he has been urging the Senate to quickly approve the package as well.
Thank you so much, Adam, for today's coverage. Happy Earth Day, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow.
You too. Happy Earth Day. I'll see you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.